on Channel Africa from an African perspective. I'm Lulu Gaboo. I'm in studio with Jwalani Tulongwepe, Figile Lingwati and Nosipo Zuma. Coming up in this hour, Israel and Hamas signed the first phase of U.S. President Donald Trump's peace deal, and Nigeria's Senate advances a bill to revoke international passports of Nigerians convicted of crimes abroad. But first up, the news with Jwalani Tulongwepe and our sports headlines with Figile Lingwati.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good day. Madagascar's President Andry Rajoelina has asked for 1 year to fix the country's challenges, promising that if they persist, he will resign. Rajoelina said this during a town hall-style meeting at East Palace with various groups of government supporters. Many attendees had the opportunity to ask the president questions or simply share their views, to which he responded. The movement behind the protest, known as Gen Z Mada, has been calling for the president's resignation and rejected an invitation to attend the talks. They argue that they cannot engage a government that has been repressing them as they demand basic human rights. The group has called for protests to continue today. South Africa's National Police Commissioner General Fani Masemola has started giving evidence before Parliament's ad hoc committee, which is probing allegations made by KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Ndladla Mkhwanazi in July. The committee was established to probe Mkhwanazi's wide-ranging allegations of criminal infiltration, corruption and political interference in the criminal justice system. Masemola is the second witness to appear before the committee. Meanwhile, Mkhwanazi has called on Parliament to probe forensic investigator Paul O'Sullivan. Mkhwanazi testified for a second day yesterday before Parliament's ad hoc committee probing concerns of national security. Mkhwanazi said he was told by Police Minister Senzo Mchunu Chief of Staff Cedric Nkabinde that operations of the Independent Police Investigative Directorate IPID were planned, coordinated and executed at O'Sullivan's house.
I'm saying this to the members because it is that which Mr. Nkabinde told me, who is now a chief of staff in the office of the minister, that operations of IPID were planned, coordinated and executed at Paul O'Sullivan's house. That was his words to me. So I'm going to request that such be investigated in details, because the phone will put Mark Bright in this place, will put Paul O'Sullivan in this place, will put Nkabinde in this place, and others. And when that investigation is conducted, nobody can deny it, because we'll know exactly that all of them have been operating, guided by Paul O'Sullivan.
The United Nations will cut a quarter of peacekeepers in 9 operations around the world in the coming months due to a lack of money. Washington is the UN's largest peacekeeping contributor, accounting for more than 26% of funding, followed by China, which pays nearly 24%. US President Donald Trump in August unilaterally cancelled some $800 million in peacekeeping funding appropriated for 2024 and 2025. The peacekeeping operations affected are in South Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Lebanon, Kosovo, Cyprus, the Central African Republic and Western Sahara, amongst many more. And finally, there have been celebrations in Gaza and Israel following the announcement of a ceasefire agreement that could be a first step toward ending the war in the Middle East. The deal involves a ceasefire, followed by the release of all Israeli hostages in return for Palestinian prisoners and the withdrawal of Israeli troops from parts of Gaza. James Alder is from the UN's Children's Agency, UNICEF, and is in central Gaza.
There's a lot to be done, but yeah, there's an immense amount of relief right now. You can't overstate how Palestinians have been pushed to the edge physically and psychologically. You know, they, as a Palestinian said to me yesterday, we've lost our homes, our loved ones, ability to feed our children. So the only thing they have agency over is hope, and they've been holding on to that. So today is a very, very important beginning.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jwalani Tulongwepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
In a sports headline, Thabang Mathuludi overcomes injury setback to seize Bafana Bafana opportunity. And Proteas lose Gwena Mapaga for Pakistan White Ball Tour. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Your window to the continent and beyond. Africa Update. Only on Channel Africa. Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Well, thank you to Jolani Tulongwepe with our news update and Figile Lingwati with our sports headlines. It is 12:05 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on DSTV's audio bouquet channel 802, OpenView channel 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app, available on the Apple and Google Play stores. Join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763. That's 406-9126 #Africa Update, and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call on +2711 714 4459.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo. 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Well, today on #Africa Update Us, Nigeria's Senate has advanced a bill that looks to revoke the international passports of Nigerians convicted of crimes abroad for a period of 10 years following the completion of their sentences. And South Africa's Home Affairs Minister, Dr. Dion Schreiber, has granted an extension of the Zimbabwe exemption permit until May 2027. Now, our question to you is, what do you make of the actions by the two countries, and are you in agreement? Share your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram, at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 as 406-9126 #Africa Update Us.
Property is more than bricks and mortar. It's your pathway to security, growth, and freedom. Let Century 21 property professionals help you make smart moves in today's market. Our award-winning real estate agents combine world-class marketing with local expertise, helping you sell faster, buy smarter, and grow your investments. Visit century21.co.za and let's open the door to your next chapter.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
It is 12:08 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. The late South African ambassador to France, Nathi Mthethwa's mortal remains are expected to be repatriated today. Meanwhile, President Cyril Ramaphosa has accorded Mthethwa a special official funeral category 2. This will take place at Gwambonambi in the KwaZulu-Natal province this Sunday, the 12th of October. Mthethwa died after falling from the 22nd floor of a hotel in Paris in France. Now, SABC News correspondent William Denslow gives us more.
Several more members of the family expected to be arriving in Paris. They'll likely make their way here to the ambassadorial residence. It's an opportunity for the family to gather here in Paris before, of course, the fetching of the spirit, that repatriation process to begin. I've been speaking to the family, saying that they're expected to travel to Charles de Gaulle Airport mid-afternoon here in Paris before a flight at just after 9 p.m. here in Paris and in South Africa to be arriving on Friday. This comes after yesterday here in Paris, in the east of the city, a memorial service was held. It was an opportunity for members of the family, some that had only been in Paris for a few hours, along with friends, as well as some official representation from a few other embassies, such as Zambia and Namibia, to pay their respects, to see the coffin draped in the South African flag, to douse it with a little holy water. There were prayers, there was some hymn singing, and an opportunity, of course, for friends and family to pay their respects. We also heard from the late ambassador's son, who thanked people for coming, saying how unified the family was and how much they appreciate the outpouring of support that they've received during this difficult time. When it comes to this investigation, of course, we discovered in recent days that this team of 5 South African investigators that was really assured over the weekend had been whittled down to just 1. So very much the focus of what the South African investigators would be providing has somewhat changed in the last few days. We understand that that investigator will very much be in a listening brief. That's really been the communication from SAPS. The assignment will be to hear from the French investigators that have been working since day 1 of this tragedy over a week ago, and also an opportunity for the South African officials, police investigators, to ask their own questions directly. So this won't be a formal investigation undertaken by the South African authorities, but an opportunity to hear really directly from French counterparts and to be able to ask them anything that they might still be curious about. Of course, still very much going on that initial report from a week ago that suggested that this could well have been a suicide. According to their preliminary investigations, they say that there was no third-party involvement according to their preliminary findings, and that it seems to have been a preliminary act. But when we got that information a week ago, this was just a preliminary and initial report as their investigation continued.
That was SABC News correspondent William Denslow in France ending that report. It is 11 after 12 Central African Time.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Now, Gaza's and Israelis woke to the news of the first phase of the Trump peace deal having been accepted. Now, Israel's cabinet will hold a vote today on the peace plan, and if it agrees, then it will have 24 hours to withdraw its troops, kicking off a 72-hour window in which Hamas may release the remaining hostages. The U.S. says it expects the release of the 20 hostages to begin on Monday, but Hamas may move to release them earlier. Reactions have been coming out of Gaza and Israel. Dr. Ori Goldberg, a political commentator on the Middle East, now joins us virtually. Dr. Goldberg, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, Lulu. Thank you for having me.
Now, President Trump has been seen, or is being seen as the hero in this, but is he really the hero?
Not necessarily a hero. The deal that Trump has pushed through has been a deal that was on the table for months and months, and Trump has also been under immense pressure from the Arab monarchies in the Persian Gulf and from various other elements around the world who have found the political resolve necessary to stand up to Israel. Trump has shown a good sense of timing here, there's no doubt, but I don't think he's a hero. I think what makes me cautiously optimistic about the success of this deal is that a lot of powerful players have their personal interests converging on this deal. Trump has many personal interests in this deal, as does Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as do the leaders of the Arab monarchies. None of them care a fig about the Palestinians.
Now, with regards to the Palestinians, and they're saying that they are relieved and optimistic, as well as excited and happy, and hope to be able to return to their homes. But is this likely to take place in the near future? I mean, with what the visuals that we've seen of what has happened over a period of time it's quite worrying or quite scary.
You're using understatement. They don't have homes. About 80% of all the structures in the Gaza Strip have been destroyed. Any home they will return to will at best be a camp established especially for their needs as the strip is being reconstructed. I understand and value and am happy with their happiness and wish them at the very least some silence over the next few days, but this is only the beginning of a very long process which will be obfuscated and disturbed by all the powerful players who are engaged in it. And again, the interest of the Palestinians is not the interest of the great majority of players who are involved in this process right now. Everybody's trying to score some points and to win various games. hopefully the Palestinians can negotiate their plight and find their way successfully, but this is only the beginning.
Now, with you mentioned the fact that everyone is trying to score points and take away something positive for themselves away from this. Let's take a look at what some of those involved had to say. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said it was a great day for Israel. U.S. President Donald Trump said it was a great day for the Arab and Muslim world. And Hamas said the people of Gaza demonstrated unmatched courage, honor, and heroism. Now, what do you make of these statements by the role players?
I think that's the only thing they could say. How could Netanyahu say something like Israel has failed abjectly in all of its own self-defined war goals? He couldn't. He has to spin this as some sort of victory. How could Netanyahu say nobody has any knowledge of the whereabouts of at least 10 corpses of hostages because we bombed Gaza into complete rubble and they are buried beneath that rubble? The same goes for Hamas, who is generally reviled by Gazans in the Strip. And of course, the same goes for President of the United States, who has been under immense pressure from the Gulf monarchies and other Arab political entities. Everybody needs to spin this as a win. And in many ways, it is. But, hopefully, it hasn't happened yet. Hopefully, when this deal is signed, the killing will stop. The actual slaughter will, at the very least, cease. And the level of destruction, the level of death is such in Gaza that is a blessed development. And anything that comes from that, we can be hopeful about it, but all of us should be happy that Israel is not killing Palestinians on a daily basis as it has done every day for the past 2 years.
Now, just for interest's sake, what is more than likely to happen when it comes to the rebuilding of the homes that were lost and just starting from scratch? Because now it must be avoided. Well, it won't be avoided initially with regards to whether they use tents and things like that for people to have, covers over their heads or roofs over their heads. But just the rebuilding of homes of the Palestinians in Gaza. How long do you think it will take, and where's the money going to come from?
Those are all very good questions. If Gaza is truly to undergo reconstruction, it will take years and years, likely no less than a decade. Where's the money to come from? From whoever is willing to pay. I would assume, again, that the leaders of the Gulf monarchies are going to be prime funders. I would also assume that the international community, as represented by the United Nations and other organizations, will also pay for certain aspects. And I will assume that certain countries who have commercial interests, like China, for example, and Turkey, both countries that excel at large-scale infrastructure projects, will be only too happy to supply the labor for a lengthy period of time and reap the financial benefits. I think this will have to be a combination of interest and morality, if you will, but I think it's sure the reconstruction of Gaza as part of a larger process of which South Africa is a leader, a process of ending Israel's occupation of the Palestinian territories and of acknowledging Palestinian sovereignty. I think the political, the financial, the commercial, and the personal will all be closely tied in that.
Now, Israel's Defense Forces says that it has begun operational preparations ahead of the implementation of the agreement. Now, could this signify that Cabinet will accept the deal and things will get moving? Or are we expected to perhaps see another hiccup? Are they going to sign on the dotted line?
I have no doubt that they will sign the dotted line, if only because the Israeli cabinet is just about wholly personally indentured to Prime Minister Netanyahu, and signing the deal is in Prime Minister Netanyahu's direct interest. If he signs the deal, he will be the Prime Minister who fought the difficult war, but also signed the difficult peace. And assuming there will be a snap election called in Israel over the past several months, this will allow him to present himself as the complete candidate who is already by definition better than any of his would-be competitors who all agree with him and who have done nothing of the sort. So the entire cabinet is there because, at the pleasure of Netanyahu, not constitutionally, personally. So I have no doubt they will sign the dotted line. I even believe Ministers Smotrich and Ben-Gvir will not necessarily leave government, and even if Smotrich does, Ben-Gvir will stay.
Now, according to David Satterfield, a former U.S. Special Envoy for the Middle East humanitarian issues, the deal is an extraordinary first step, but there is a lot more work to be done. This is before a lasting resolution in Gaza will be found. Now, while we are celebrating the first phase of this peace deal, it is only the beginning. What more could we expect from the talks in Egypt?
It is very much only the beginning. And it's very difficult to know what to expect. I doubt we can expect a great deal in the mid to long term from the talks in Egypt. I think what we will see is a gradual incremental framework where each step is guaranteed by the completion of the previous one. What I think is most crucial is doing away with the the brazen idea of a board of government headed by Tony Blair and Jared Kushner, and allowing Palestinian representation that will be aided by Israel releasing several prominent Palestinian political persons like Marwan Barghouti, who could lead the Palestinian factions in united form. Again, Israel will try its best to disrupt and obfuscate, but Israel is weaker now than it was 6 months ago. Probably as weak as I remember it. Israel can kill many Palestinians, but it has lost the power to shape the dynamic of events. So what we will see really can change on a daily basis, and is up to the new dynamic where Israel is not the sole sovereign that will take shape in the negotiating rooms.
Well, Dr. Goldberg, it was a pleasure chatting to you. Thank you so much for joining us. We are going to leave it there for today.
Thank you for having me.
That's Dr. Ori Goldberg, a political commentator on the Middle East, joining us on the line.
Je, una jambo lolote akilini mwako? Je, una shauku kuhusu maswala muhimu? Na je, una maoni ambayo unataka yasikike? Kweli, hili jukwaa ni la kwako. Piga simu au tuandikie kwenda WhatsApp namba alama ya kujumulisha 2760552594 na tutakupigia simu.
Mtangazaji wa habari zetu za Afrika Kusini mjini Johannesburg.
Hivyo unaweza kuwa mshirika kwenye matangazo yetu. Sio mazungumzo tu, ni fursa yako ya kuchangia maoni yako na kushirikiana na jumuiya ya wasikilizaji wanaotamani mtazamo wako. Tufuate kwenye mitandao ya kijamii. Tembelea tovuti yetu www.channelafrica.co.za na uwe tayari kushiriki na kuchangia maoni yako kwenye Channel Africa. Channel Africa, mtazamo wa Kiafrika.
Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mokoenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
It is 24 after 12 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Nigeria's Senate has advanced a bill that looks to revoke the international passports of Nigerians convicted of crimes abroad for a period of 10 years following the completion of their sentences. Nigerian lawmakers say the legislation is aimed at restoring the country's global reputation, and it will not tolerate bringing it into disrepute. To discuss this further, we are joined on the line by a lawyer based in Abuja, a human rights activist, development advocate, media personality, and social entrepreneur, Frank Tete. Frank, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, and my pleasure indeed.
Frank, exactly how will this bill work?
Well, it's maybe very difficult. We need to have a repository of convictions or against Nigerians abroad. But by and large, we must first commend the initiative that the Nigerian people and Nigerian leaders have now come to a point where they have realized the embarrassments Nigerians have been causing to themselves, especially Nigerians abroad. We have a very bad reputation, sadly and shamefully, caused by criminalities by few of us abroad. And it seems as if it's intractable and nothing could or can be done about it. And now, in this regard, to think that the members of the National Assembly are in the forefront to finding a solution to this makes it really very, very encouraging. It's maybe very difficult because we have systems here that hardly work within within our control, and now to think that we have to now collect information about convictions of Nigerians abroad will be very difficult. However, it's a very welcome development.
Now, will it restore Nigeria's reputation? Because it will only be for those who have been convicted of crimes. What about those who are getting away with crimes?
Look, let me be honest with you. It will not in any way improve the reputation of Nigeria as it stands today as the capital of scammers and persons who spot what we call 419 crimes, that is, advanced fee fraud crimes. However, it will be a first step that is so positive that will give the impression that the Nigerian authorities are now taking the reputation of Nigeria very seriously when it comes to the bad acts of many Nigerians abroad. We have to come back home to carry out another form of national orientation that deliberately presents Nigeria as a group of honest people where you can expect honest business, and if you ever encounter them abroad, you should know what to expect. That will take a long time. That will also take a lot of effort on the part of the Nigerian government and, culturally speaking, on the part of Nigerians. Unfortunately, Nigeria is a very diverse, country in terms of ethnicity and population. Many of these crimes, to a large extent, can be stereotyped with certain people, and I don't want to mention them. So that's the unfortunate part of it. So there should be some concentration on these desperate elements in Nigeria to stem the tide of crime by a change of mindset. It's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to take a lot in terms of resources, campaigning, and presenting us with this new brand that we are no longer people that you oftentimes associated with criminality, especially advanced fee fraud, scamming foreigners, and getting involved in drugs, drug trafficking, human trafficking, and all of that. It's good. It will take a long time, but when we have, as a people, make declarations that we are on a different course, then the encouragement starts, and then you can expect improvements.
Now, the bill is expected to undergo public hearings in the coming weeks. How will this take place, and would Nigerians care about such a bill? And another interesting one would also be, will this also include Nigerians who are abroad?
Absolutely. In fact, you see, you can tell by the bipartisan support that the bill has already received. And it's going to public hearing. I can predict that it will have overwhelming public support, because, to be honest with you, Nigerians are tired with the bad reputation that we have, especially abroad. And it affects us in every way. It affects us in the inflow of foreign investment. It affects us in our financial transactions across borders. And Nigerians as individuals are unable to do anything about it. So this will be the first time, apart from enacting anti-money laundering laws, which are often used as if they are meant to be to attack political enemies or to affect people, that to stifle businesses. This becomes a positive step in ensuring that Nigerians now know as individuals that it is important that you give a good impression of yourself while abroad, and on that basis you take responsibility to conduct yourself in by good behavior at all times, and that there will be consequences beyond the conviction, beyond the sentencing, beyond the punishment. There will be consequences even back home in Nigeria that you may not be fitting as an ambassador of Nigeria to even leave this country anymore. What the concerns would not be that the deprivation of a passport to a citizen is a very, very serious issue that should not be done by just an act of parliament, but to a large extent it should involve some measure of fair hearing. Those are issues that can be brought up at the public hearing, and I believe that citizens will welcome anything that will salvage the Nigerian reputation right now, especially abroad.
Frank, we have run out of time. We could go on for a longer time, but unfortunately we are going to have to leave it there for today. That's Frank Tete, lawyer based in Abuja, Nigeria, a human rights activist, development advocate, media personality, and social entrepreneur, ending that discussion. Our news headlines up next with Jolani Tulongwepe.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon. Making headlines. Madagascar's President André Rajoelina has asked for 1 year to fix the country's challenges, promising that if they persist, he will resign. South Africa's National Police Commissioner, General Fani Masemola, has started giving evidence before Parliament's ad hoc committee, which is probing allegations made by KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Ntantla Mkhwanazi in July. And the South African Jewish Board of Deputies has welcomed the newly brokered peace deal fostered by the United States and Arab nations. I will have details on these and other stories at 1 o'clock.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
We kick off with football news this hour. Newly called up Bafana Bafana wingback Thabang Mathuludi is drawing inspiration from his former Polokwane City teammate Oswin Apolis and his rise at the international level. Speaking to the media this week during Bafana Bafana's press conference, Mathuludi, who was part of this year's COSAFA Cup squad in Bloemfontein, says having someone like Apolis attracting the attention of the national selectors helped them. Mathuludi is expected to compete with Khuliso Mudau for the next two crucial World Cup qualifying matches against Zimbabwe and Rwanda this week as they look to seal their spot for next year's big spectacle. And Stars of Africa Academy founder Farouk Khan says for South Africa to be competitive in the world, they have to unearth talent at an early age. Khan is doubling down on his mission to unearth the country's next generation of football stars with the launch of another youth tournament this week. The former Kaizer Chiefs and Mamelodi Sundowns coach has invited teams from across the country with players aged 8 to 15 assembling in Johannesburg for a scouting opportunity. Khan's academy has produced several household names and Bafana stars over the years, including Tefu Mashamaite, May Mahlangu, Patrick Maswanganyi, Luther Singh, and Tukela Randiye.
We're always looking for quality talent, and today was no exception. We've had teams coming from as far as Free State. We had boys coming from Cape Town. All of these teams are coming to showcase their talent, obviously, and to play in the tournament. And I think the tournament has allowed us to, unearth some phenomenal talent. The only concern is some of them look very little. So we're optimistic about ensuring that we can get them on some sort of a feeding scheme ultimately. But the talent is out of this world.
And finally, with the cricket news, South Africa's fast bowler Kwena Maphaka has been ruled out of the one-off T20 International against Namibia in Windhoek on Saturday and the white ball tour of Pakistan due to a hamstring strain. The 19-year-old sustained the injury during the Lions' opening 4-day series match against Western Province at Newlands in Cape Town last week. He'll be sidelined for at least 4 weeks. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Chers auditeurs, Channel Africa aimerait mieux te connaître. Nous lançons un sondage sur l'audience et nous t'invitons à donner ton avis sur nos programmes. Participez à notre enquête sur www.channelafrica.co.za et sur tous nos réseaux sociaux. Et courez ainsi la chance de gagner une tablette Samsung ou un des 2 téléphones portables Samsung A23. Le sondage est disponible en anglais, en français, en portugais, en kiswahili et en chinyanja. Notre désir en tant que station est de mieux vous comprendre. Hashtag, nous valorisons votre apport.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Good afternoon, I'm Nosipo Zuma. In your business news this hour, the Kingdom of Lesotho's Highest Commission in South Africa is hosting the Lesotho Diaspora Investment Forum in Midrand, north of Johannesburg. Held under the theme Taking Lesotho to the World through Investment, the event aims to encourage Lesotho citizens living abroad to invest in key economic sectors back home. Chaba Mukoko, Chief Executive Director of Lesotho's Competitiveness and Financial Inclusion, elaborates on the purpose and significance of the gathering.
As you are aware, COVID-19 severely affected businesses across Africa, and Lesotho was no exception. And so we took a bold step with the assistance of the World Bank to design a project, which is this particular competitiveness and financial inclusion project. Among other things, the focus is on entrepreneurship and business development. And so we are here to promote investment in diverse sectors in Lesotho. We are here also to showcase the work that we are doing in terms of building the entrepreneurial ecosystem of Lesotho.
Nigeria has commissioned its first wholly owned floating storage and offloading vessel near its Boni export terminal as Africa's biggest oil producer seeks to improve its crude export infrastructure. The 2.2 million barrel capacity FSO aims to boost crude oil transportation and production from oil mining lease 18 and surrounding assets in the country's eastern Niger Delta. It is also expected to reduce reliance on pipelines and mitigate risks associated with oil theft and vandalism. The FSO Carlton was developed by Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. Top cocoa producer Ivory Coast was able to trace the origin of nearly half of its beans last season as it prepared for the EU's landmark anti-deforestation law. Now, this is according to the Cocoa Barometer report produced by a group of civil society organizations, the Voice Network Group. The first of its kind policy aimed at ending the 10% of global deforestation fueled by EU consumption of imported goods was due to take effect on the 30th of December, but is scheduled to be delayed by another year. Although this would have been insufficient to comply with the law, as Ivory Coast ships about 2/3 of its beans to the EU, the country would be able to trace far more beans this season. U.S. imports of containerized goods in September fell 8.4% from the year earlier, including a 22.9% drop in goods from China amid ongoing trade ructions from President Donald Trump's tariff policies. U.S. seaports handled 2.31 million to 20-foot equivalent units of container cargo last month, the third highest September volume on record, despite being a decline from last year. With most holiday merchandise delivered earlier than usual and tariffs continuing to rise, monthly import cargo volume at the nation's major container ports is forecast to fall below the 2 mark for the remainder of the year. Now, finally, Germany's luxury sports car maker Porsche says its sales dropped globally in the first 9 months of 2025. Now, the car maker blames the Chinese market for the 26% slump and the intense competitive market conditions. The car maker delivered around 70,836 vehicles globally between July and September. Tato Letaba has more.
Porsche dropped by 6% from last year's level. Between January and September, the luxury car brand delivered 212,509 vehicles worldwide. Member of the executive board for sales and marketing at Porsche, Matthias Becker, says they expect the market environment to remain challenging. The car maker cut its outlook in September due to weak demand and pressure in the market posed by China's motor manufacturing industry and higher U.S. tariffs.
Your financial indicators: $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 469. In Botswana is 13 pula 20. Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 44. And in Zambia is 23 kwacha 69. The BRICS countries: $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 ruble 35. Russia is 81 rubles 60. India is 88 rupees 77. China at 7 yuan 12. And in South Africa, $1 is trading at 17 rand 18. $1 is trading at 75 pence to the British pound and 86 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $4,039 and platinum at $1,658 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $66.37 a barrel. Now, for any business news stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I'm Nosipho Zuma.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628. AUSISA, the Association of Water and Sanitation Institution of South Africa, is a platform uniting Africa's water professionals. This November, Africa leads the conversation on water and sanitation. Join global and African leaders at the AUSISA Africa and Global South Dialogue 2025 from the 9th till the 12th of November at the Emperor's Palace, Johannesburg. From policy innovation, this is where action meets collaboration for a water-secure future. Register today at ausisa-watersan-dialogue.org or follow at AUSISA on social media. AUSISA, working together for sustainable water and sanitation security in Africa. Africa Update, your daily dose of African insights with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
It is 12:43 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. The UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, says that it is deeply concerned about the rapidly growing displacement in northern Mozambique as a conflict that is entering its 8th year appears to be intensifying again. The conflict and surge in violence have forced nearly 22,000 people to flee their homes in a single week in the late September. The agency adds that the new wave of displacement is among the largest recorded this year, with over 100,000 people already forced to escape. And to speak to us further on this, we are joined on the line by Isadora Zoni, the communications officer at UNHCR based in Mozambique. Isadora, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, Lulu. Thanks for having me here.
Now, Isadora, explain how the displacement is affecting the ordinary citizens, especially women and children.
Thanks. I think this is one of our biggest concerns, especially because we've seen in the recent years that the change has been that the civilians are no longer just collateral, but they are in fact the ones that are being targeted. And this means that people then are having to leave their lives behind. Children, for example, if they're going to school, the moment that someone has to flee, they are then interrupting their education, interrupting their access to basic services, such as, for example, health. So it is really concerning because we also are talking about a generation of people that are going to be deprived of this, and especially with the back and forth, because 89% of the people actually report that they have been displaced more than once. So this is something that is really affecting people. And 8 years now of conflict, this also means that this become a reality. So hope is really scarce at the moment, and it is really a challenge to see how this can, like, the way forward for the people in Cabo Delgado.
Now, the UNHCR's Mozambique representative Xavier Creator told a UN press conference in Geneva that by the end of August, over 500 security incidents affecting civilians were recorded. Just tell us more about this.
I think when we talk about this 500, it's actually 517 by the end of August. It's deeply concerning because this means that on average, we're talking about 2 incidents happening every day. And these incidents, when we say incident, maybe we don't really understand what we're talking about, but we're talking about looting, we're talking about random killings, we're talking about villages being burned to the ground. So it is really difficult for someone to live in these conditions. And when we talk about this, sometimes, for example, when we have an incident, it might not affect directly your community, but if it's affecting a community just 5 kilometers away from you, how do you react? So it is instinctively that people grab their things, grab their child, and just try to flee. And it's really, really concerning to see that happening again and again, especially because when we look back to 2022, which had been the year with more incidents reported, we now compare and we see that we still have 4 months to go, and the numbers have already surpassed 2022.
And just let's talk about people with disabilities and older people, the elderly, struggling to flee during attacks. The UN representative highlighted this because it is a big issue. How do they get assistance?
I think the issue is really getting to a point where they can be assisted. Because just last week when I was in Chiuri, I met with an older lady that said that when the people started to flee, they all started just running through the bush. And this meant that she had to walk for 2 days. And this is someone who's already like having her own issues to just walk. Imagine running through a forest. So really, a lot of people end up being left behind, which is then really concerning because then they are exposed. But those that manage to arrive to safety, they are the ones that are prioritized. For example, UNHCR, we have deployed mobile teams that are on these areas where the newly displaced are arriving so that we can identify. For instance, in Chiuri, we managed to identify over 180 people with disabilities, and then we ended up assisting them, including with assistive devices, for example, such as wheelchairs, canes, and other ways that we can support these communities also for them to be then the ones in the front lines to receive assistance.
And just looking at this crisis that is continuing, in terms of aid getting to the people, what are you managing to give the people? What aid are you managing to get? And are you hoping to get more? What are you calling for?
Indeed. I think something that we have to do is that if we have less, we have to do more, but it's also a challenge. So the way that we see that this, how we can support the people is by pairing up, by really finding other agencies. So UNHCR has joined the Joint Response Plan together with UNICEF, WFP, and IOM. And we are then deploying these teams so that the team can receive food assistance, shelter, also provide support to children. A lot of children end up being unaccompanied minors. And of course, then protection, such as, for example, support to gender-based violence victims, people who are then in need of medical assistance so that the referral can happen swiftly. There's a lot that can be done, but there's indeed a lot that needs to be done. Unfortunately, resources continue to be one of the major challenges in this emergency. We are severely underfunded as a whole in terms of the response, humanitarian response. So only 50% of what we would need. So this is really something, and we are calling for more, especially if we can get flexible funding, which can mean that this assistance can then be targeted to communities, especially in this emergency that is evolving.
And are you getting any assistance from the government of Mozambique?
We work closely with the government of Mozambique because otherwise we wouldn't be able to target the population. So together with INGD, which is the agency for the crisis that we end up working together, and of course the government, It's really a group effort. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible for us to even reach these communities. As we're talking about the events of this now the new phase of the conflict also means that we have attacks that are happening simultaneously in different districts. So it's a very challenging logistic scenario. And it, of course, depends on support from the government so that we can be able to get to the communities most affected.
Well, Isadora, we are going to leave it there for today. Thank you for joining us on Africa Update. That's Isadora Zoni, the communications officer at the UNHCR based in Mozambique, joining us on the line.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
It is 12:50 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Today on hashtag Africa Updates Ask, Nigeria's Senate has advanced a bill that looks to revoke the international passports of Nigerians convicted of crimes abroad for a period of 10 years following the completion of their sentences. And in South Africa's Home Affairs Minister, Dr. Leon Schreiber, has granted an extension of the Zimbabwe exemption permit until May 2027. Now, we're asking you today what you make of the actions by the two countries, and are you in agreement? Share your thoughts and your views on all our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 406 9126. Hashtag Africa Update Us.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Now we go to another big story that we have been focusing on and following. That is the South Africa's National Police Commissioner General Fanny Masemola appearing before the country's ad hoc committee in Parliament, investigating allegations that were made by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Mkhwanazi faced tough questions from Parliament's ad hoc committee. He was pressed to reveal the identities of the so-called Big Five allegedly running drug cartels and influencing key institutions in the country. Mkhwanazi only named two well-known arrested suspects as Vusmuzi Katz Matlala and Katiso Mulife, as they have appeared in court, but held back, refusing to name the other three as they have not been arrested and appeared in court. However, he says the other three are known tenderpreneurs.
To answer the question of the honourable member, I think it's important to look at that sketch that we put in the statement. You are asking who are these big fives. We can only talk about the big five of those that are already arrested and they are in court. Those that have not been arrested, unfortunately, we're not in a liberty to talk about them. You will see that the big five on this graph are those that are marked with red on that picture on the left. So that whole group, the only names that we are making it visible here are the two names. Okay. And that's a name of a Vusmus Matlala, who is known as Cat, as well as Katiso Mulefe. Both individuals have been to court, and I think you are privy to the court processes related to their cases. We have the other three that we did not reflect here. They are known. Their names are known. I must say, Honorable Chair and members, these are tenderpreneurs. These are the people that the government has been awarding tenders to. They are quite big financially. They are part of this whole lot. We did not put their names because we did not want to implicate people before they appear before court, except the others. The place that we feel comfortable to talk about it, we name the names, and the others that we're not comfortable with, we did not put the names.
Well, that was the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
A powerful collective call for a cessation of hostilities between forces aligned with the parties to the peace deal in South Sudan was issued early this week by regional and international partners at the fourth extraordinary meeting of the reconstituted Joint Monitoring and Evaluation Commission. The forum focused on addressing the deteriorating political and security situation in South Sudan. Lulu Gaboo compiled this report.
The fourth extraordinary meeting of the reconstituted Joint Monitoring and Evaluation Commission RJMEC Forum has made a powerful collective call for a cessation of hostilities between forces in South Sudan aligned with the parties to the peace deal earlier this week. Since March 2025, political violence has escalated, including aerial bombardments in parts of the country. A sharp 59% increase has been recorded in civilian casualties so far this year compared to last year, and nearly 321,000 people have been newly displaced by the conflict. Colonel Ghana Gabrielson, Chief of Staff for Ceasefire and Transitional Security Arrangements Monitoring and Verification Mechanism, says the signatories continue to attack each other despite the ceasefire agreement.
The permanent ceasefire is continually and repeatedly violated by signatory parties. Across many parts of the country, SPLM, AIO and SSPDF forces have consistently attacked each other and their allied forces, leading to the death of civilians, the destruction of villages, and internal displacement.
The political schism caused by the trial of First President Riek Machar and other co-accused was also discussed at the plenary held by peace monitoring body, the RJMEC. Ambassador George Agri Owono, chairperson of RJMEC, says it's clear that if this issue is not addressed, the agreement could fail completely due to rising political tensions, mistrust, and violence.
There is no doubt, therefore, that the Axis is facing its greatest challenge since its signing. If the current challenges are not urgently addressed, there is a high risk of reversal of all the gains already made, and may lead to a collapse of the agreement altogether.
The political crisis is also exacerbating the dire humanitarian situation, with conflict and flooding causing the displacement of about 500,000 people. Humanitarians are also facing increasing restrictions while trying to access vulnerable communities, with 70 excess incidents reported this month.
And that report by Lulu Gaboo. And we say happy Thursday to the Upside team. It is Tebogo Lekuleni. How are you today?
Yes.
Okay, what's happening with you?
Yes. I'm fantastic, Lulu. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yes. So what's coming up today?
So it's a Thursday today. We're talking all things arts, culture, heritage, and we kickstart our conversations by finding out how dance and movement can be used as tools of hope against cancer. Ooh. And we do that with Nomsa Manaka, who's on a mission to dance out of cancer.
Okay.
And that's going to be quite a fascinating conversation. And then later on, we go into the art world with Koki Kamala, redefining African luxury. And then we talk all things fashion and fabric, wall art, and collaborations that are currently happening on the African continent in the world of fashion. That's all coming up on The Upside this afternoon.
That's The Upside coming up at the top of the hour with Tebogo Lekuleni and Matsuko Musito. For myself, Lulu Gaboo, and the Africa Update team, it's been a good one. Continue with us on our socials. And thank you to our producer, Tracy Bumgard, our technical operator, Moindli Mdambo, and social media, Sfiso Thope, and Talent Butelezi. Goodbye. Let's do this again tomorrow.